Yeah. Get him, Sam. I'm gonna let him off. Okay, remember that. So, hello.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about communications. How to communicate effectively, how not to communicate effectively, and why it's important. And we're going to talk about what they say is the number one fear of most people, public speaking. Example, standing up in front of people, mostly strangers, talking about a subject and experience or something that we all know about. Everybody's frightened of this, they say, including me. I don't know if you can tell or not, but this is not my specialty or my forte. But this is what helps me do this with a little less frustration. I don't care a whole lot about what y'all might think about what I'm talking about, or how I look, or how I talk, or if I'm doing it right, because I don't think anybody knows how to do it just right. I think everybody's learning as they go. Even the so-called professionals, they just get paid a lot of money to do this, and I don't get it. When I think that way, it takes the pressure off of me, and it puts all the pressure on you to listen closely to what I'm talking about, and hopefully you'll learn something. Now, when it comes to communication, there are a lot of styles. And one thing about life, what was true in the 80s about communication was pretty much not true in the 90s. What was true in the 90s about communication was pretty much not true in the 2000s. My point is, it's always changing about the best style to communicate. One time, the best way to communicate was to stand up here like a robot, hold your hands on your sides, and speak like this, and you move your head side to side, and you look just like you're a crazy human being, and you're not real, you're a piece of plastic or a piece of cardboard. That was accepted. And all it takes is somebody with a lot of money to get up there and do that, and people think that's the standard. That's the way you do it. It must be right because he or she is rich. I never believed that. I'm an outlier when it comes to how I think. Because I think a person is most effective when they're comfortable doing whatever it is they're doing. Now, too much moving around can be distracting. If I do too much animation, it might distract you from my point or from what I'm trying to convey. But the main thing you got to do is just relax. And you got to know what you're talking about. Because if you don't know what you're talking about, you're going to get up here and you're going to start stuttering. And you're going to start trying to create words that really don't exist. And you're going to look kind of silly. And then you're going to start feeling a little bit silly. And you're going to start being a little bit out of pocket. Then you're going to start dodging and ducking those curveballs that you think are coming at you. But it's all in your head. It's all in your head. There's nobody who's ever done any kind of public speaking that didn't mess up a word or didn't just make a mistake. But in the audience, sometimes you really can't tell. I know a lot of people who do this and they nervous and they say, can you tell I was nervous? I'm like, no, man, we really can't tell. You know you're nervous because of how you feel, but the audience doesn't know. You just want to keep them from falling asleep. So don't talk too long, right? Don't be boring. Don't sound like a robot, and bring some energy to it. That's what keeps people interested in what you're saying. And if we don't know how to communicate, whether you do it on a platform like this, where it's an audience in front of you, or whether you're doing it one-on-one with a case manager, one-on-one with a potential employer, one-on-one with a woman you're trying to date and trying to get a phone number, it's all based on communication. It's something we have to do. And we do in different ways. Sometimes it's silent communication. Sometimes it's in your body language. Sometimes it's in how you're sitting in the chair. Sometimes it's when your head's not going. You know what you're communicating if you're sitting there and I'm talking and you're doing like this? That you're either bored with what I'm saying or you've been up all night and you ain't had enough sleep. That's what's being communicated to me. And if I get up here and I'm doing that, y'all say, what, this guy high or drunk or something? That's going to be the feedback. So here's the rules. Here's my rules of communicating, whether it's publicly, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's in the stadium of people. Relax. They just people just like you. They not perfect. Most of them don't know what they're talking about. Most of them don't know how to listen to you. And most of them looking at the clock saying, I'll be glad when he finished talking. Once you go through those motions in your head, you'll be a lot better off. It's simple. The pros don't want to tell you that. You know why? Because it makes what they do look easy. They want to always make what they do look like it's so difficult. It takes so much practice. In Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, I think it's The Tipping Point, he says typically to get really good at something, people put in 10,000 hours of practice. He did a study. If you're a quarterback and you get real good at something, in his research, most quarterbacks have spent 10,000 hours of perfecting a pass that they were trying to throw. Basketball player, a boxer, I don't know how he did it. He had some scientific way where he was able to break that down. And in one of his books, a chapter is called 10,000 Hours. That's the time people put into doing something before they feel like they're professional or really, really good at it. I don't know how true that is. I don't keep counting my hours. And I don't do this as much as some people think. But I don't mind doing it because I feel like everybody I talk to is my equal. I don't care what kind of car they drive. I don't care how much money they make. I don't care if they got a lot of 3 letters behind their name, PhD, etc., etc. It does not matter to me. They're a human being just like me. And when I approach it that way, I'm very much more comfortable talking to them, looking them in the eye, and just being who I am. And that helps me a great deal. And I apply that principle in life, whether I'm talking to a judge, someone who can make a serious decision over the rest of my life, or whether I'm talking to a woman that may potentially be the woman that's going to be my wife. We just people trying to figure it out along our way and trying to get a job done, trying to get where we're trying to go. Another thing about communication that's very important, you really got to know the subject that you're talking about. Can't wing it all the time. Very few people are good enough to freestyle off the top of their head. Very few. Sometimes you got to do a lot of research and study something, practice in the mirror. You have to go through whatever routines make you comfortable. And for different people, it's different things. For some people, let me practice on my dog. Some people, when they sing, which is a form of communication, right? When you sing, you make music, and you want people to listen to it. That's a form of communication. A lot of people grab a brush or a utensil or a big spoon or something, and they sing. They practice singing. They do it so much that when they stand on stage, it looks like they're looking in the audience, but guess what I learned from a friend of mine who was a retired Marine? He told me that part of his job was to deliver the flags, the United States flags, to the family or loved ones of a former Marine that had died in combat. And I said, man, how do you do that? That sounds real tough. He said, it's pretty simple for me. You just glass over them. And I said, what? I never heard that term before. He says, I'll show you. So I sat down in his office across from him, and he and I were talking, and it looked like he was looking me in the eye, but guess what he was doing? He was looking right across the top of my head. He wasn't making eye contact, because for some people, when you make eye contact, it's distracting. So he said he's at the funeral, white gloves on, they fold that flag real neat. I don't know, I never been a Marine, and he was the one responsible to come to the front door and knock on the door to tell somebody that their child, their husband, their brother, their sister had passed away. And when they present the flag as a form of honoring the individual, they would be in that Marine real tight, do all of that stuff, and he would glass over the individual while he was explaining to them why he was there. He was not looking them in the eye. He said that's something he learned in the Marines. So I practiced that one time when I was speaking to a very large group of people. It looked like I was scanning the room. I'm doing it right now as we speak. I'm looking right over everybody's head, because if I lock eyes with one individual, it's going to distract me from what I'm talking about. Don't let it be a pretty lady that I lock eyes with. My mind is going all the way off subject. And now I'm feeling a little insecure because I know I messed up. It's like singing a song. You know you messed up. You know you off beat, and then you're trying to catch up on beat. And if you want American Idol and you got somebody like Simon Cowell in the audience, man, you might as well get your lunchbox and get on out the way, because you just dropped the ball. It's no longer about your talent no more. It's about you not being prepared. That's what that looks like. So when I say these things, I'm trying to be helpful to my friends who do public speaking engagements because of their jobs or because it's so important to them to share some information. And they always ask me, man, how do you do it? You make it seem so natural. My biggest rule is you care too much, man, about what other people think. If you can get over that hurdle, I'm not saying belittle anybody. I'm not saying your opinion is not important to me. And I'm not saying that you don't matter. But when you care too much, at the end of the day, guess what happens, man? They go home, they drink a beer, they watch the Super Bowl, and they kind of forget about it, man. Not that big a deal, man. That's my number one golden rule about life, man. Everybody's not as important as we make them out to be. Even me, I'm not as important as I sometimes make myself out to be, man. can't take myself too seriously because we all make mistakes. Even the best, man, in the world make mistakes. And because I know that, when I'm watching TV and I see journalists, I see newscasters, I see somebody like Oprah Winfrey or the president, Barack Obama, who was excellent orator, Martin Luther King. When I'm listening to them carefully, sometimes I could pick up on the times they make mistakes when they have given a speech. Only because I'm really looking for it. I want to see what these people that's real good at giving speeches, if they ever fumble and drop the ball. And many times they do, but they know how to catch themselves. It's like you walking and you trip. You know how to make it look like, nah, I didn't trip, man. I was just, I drug my foot a little bit. They get really good at doing that because they do it so much. And when they go backstage, they say, dang, man, I messed that word up. But most of the time, the audience don't even catch it. Unless you're somebody like me looking for it. And on TV, they call it a TV blooper. And they have them all the time, man. The best in the world do. Oprah Winfrey is known to be really good at doing talk shows and sitting on the couch, interviewing important people. And guess what? Even she makes mistakes sometimes. So my recommendation for everybody is to relax, take some of the seriousness out of it, and have fun. Life is too short to be worried about your mistakes. And life is too short not to spend time thinking about, man, how well you're going to do your next opportunity. Thank you.
Tough act to follow. Get my water. Evening, gentlemen. I ain't said hello yet, so I'm sorry.
Oh, you, man, I'm confused, Sam.
You confused?
Everybody good?
We both confused.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
So I'm here to talk to you guys today about how the mind works. My topic is going to be the sponge inside your head. So to start this off, I want everybody to take a look at this cup. Take a good look at the cup. All right. Now, the next thing I want everyone to do is to close their eyes and visualize that cup. As you can see, I've already closed my eyes, so I'm doing it with you. If you haven't closed your eyes yet, please do and participate. So what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that same cup of water in front of you right now in one of your hands. And in the other hand, you have a dry sponge. And what I want you to do is I want you to take that sponge and I want you to stick it down in that cup. Push it all the way down the bottom of that cup. All the way through all the water that's in it. And you let it sit to the bottom. And I want you to take that cup and I want you to sit it beside you. Then open your eyes. Okay, everybody open their eyes back on me. So, the reason that I wanted you to visualize that cup is to show you one of the most important and most valuable things that your mind has. The most valuable weapon your mind has, which is your imagination. The way you imagine that cup, the way you imagine that sponge going into that water, everybody could picture that. And that's one of the most unique and one of the most powerful things about your imagination. About your brain is your imagination. Some of the smartest, most successful people in the world, you know why they're the most smartest and most successful? Because they learn how to take their imagination and take their thoughts and manifest them into their life. Everything that you have, everything that you do, everything that you say, every move that you make is first a thought, and then you manifest it. You have to think before you speak. Every word I'm saying to you right now, even though I'm trying to say it as fluid and as fast as I can, and to get it out to you as fast as I can, it's still a split second before the words come out my mouth that the thought started in my head. Every gesture that I'm making, before I throw this hand out, before I raise this hands up in the air, it's a thought. That's what manifesting your thoughts is. One of the reasons I wanted to give this talk is I was inspired by a book I read called How You Decide. I can't think of the author's name right now. But one of the things that the author talked about is how much we really retain, how much memory we really have, how much memory we have and use and don't even realize it. What made this real to me was when I Googled it. I looked it up, how much memory capacity does the brain really have? And then the way that it was broken down into gigabytes. Everybody knows what a gigabyte is, or at least it's heard of. When you go purchase a phone, it's one of the first things you see on the phone. How many gigabytes the phone holds? 16, 32, 64. My video game player, same concept. When you go buy a game system, you think about how much memory this game has. 64, 100 and something, whatever. So the iPhone, I'm an iPhone fan. I don't know about you guys. I know some guys have Android, some guys like iPhones, but I'm an iPhone fan. I have an iPhone. So I looked up iPhones. So iPhones, they have anywhere, I think it was from 5 gigabytes to 500 gigabytes of data just in the iPhone. So I thought to myself, 500 gigabytes, that's a lot. So then I went and I looked at, again, how many gigabytes does the brain hold? The brain holds 2.5 million gigabytes. 2.5, just to make that even more of a reality. Yahoo has a supercomputer. The supercomputer, one of the fastest processing computers in the world, and it only processes 2 million. It only holds 2 million gigabytes of data, as opposed to our 2.5. We have more brain and memory capacity than a supercomputer, but we don't even realize it. We don't even use it sometimes. Another thing that's so unique about the brain, it was a story in the book. It was a Navy SEAL, not Navy SEAL, it was a guy in the Navy. His only job was to watch a blimp on the sonar that goes around. If anybody doesn't know what a blimp is, that's the little sonar that's a little dot and beeps, beeps, beeps. So his only job was to watch the sonar go around and around. And the thing about watching the sonar is any blimp that comes in a certain distance, he has to push the button to blow that submarine out of the water, because if it passes that point, then it'll be so close that they can't stop him and the enemy could kill them and take them out. So his job again is to keep any enemy combatant from passing that line. So one day he sees a blimp coming and it's coming to that line. But for some reason he can't pick out or identify whether this is a friendly ship or enemy ship. So he has to make a decision of whether to blow it up and it possibly being a friendly ship, and then he'll be court-martialed for treason. He'll die, he'll be killed. Or he could let it pass and it be the enemy, and then they're open to them attacking them, and then it'll be the end of them. So his decision was that. So at the last minute, before that blimp hit that line and got too close, he hit the button, he bombed it. He didn't even know at the time whether it was friendly or enemy. He was nervous, he was worried about it, because again, he just bombed it. So it's only two outcomes it could be. Either it's the enemy and he did the right thing and saved everybody on his ship, or it was a friendly and he bombed a friendly, and then he's guilty of treason, which is punishable by death. So his sergeant comes to him and congratulates him. Lo and behold, he made the right decision. It was a friendly ship. And he admitted to his sergeant that, I don't know why I did what I did. I just made a split decision at the last minute. Something just told me to press the button. So the sergeant went back over his training, reviewed what he had been through or whatever, and then it dawned on him what stuck out to him. It was a certain beep or a certain shape that at the last minute he remembered from his training, that he recognized that this is how you tell the difference between a friendly ship and an enemy ship. And again, he made the right decision. So what do I mean by that? Again, back to the picture of the sponge in the water, and the sponge being your brain. Everything that you see, read, hear, smell, taste, touch is recorded in your memory. A lot of times people think, I know everybody's heard the term deja vu. A lot of times people will see things and be like, oh, I've done that before, or oh, I've been here before, and thinking it might be something magical or ominous, but it's not. Really, it's you've seen so much, you've been through so much, that something happened very similar, or it could have already happened before. It's just that when you seen it that time, your memory recognized it. So you're thinking, oh, I've seen it before. No, that's just another memory recap. Is that? Well, I was about to talk to the crowd. So with that being said, again, keep in mind that your mind is a sponge. It takes in everything that it can. A wise man once referred to their eyes as a camera, like they're taking a shot, and that's totally true. Everything you see is recorded right now, and I don't have a photographic memory, but I've been here a few times. I can close my eyes right now and know that it's a Maya Angelou picture over here, it's a map over here, it's a picture of Bruce Lee over there, it's a picture of Mr. Rogers over there. You see how that works? All I did was just recap my memory. The same thing that all of us can do if you just tap into it. Another reason I want you to really keep in mind the sponge thing, because when I first read that book, How You Decide, my eyes was open to how much we really retain. I tried to read every book I could get my hand on, because I know whether I remember it or not, it's going to be in there. And a lot of times I'll be talking to people and they'll talk about a book, and at first I'll say, it sounds familiar, but I don't think I read it. But then they get to telling the story, and then I remember a part of the story, like, yeah, okay, I did read that book. You know, same with movies. I'm a movie fan. You know, I can almost recap any real good movie or real famous movie that everybody knows. I can run lines from the movies all day long. But even with the movies, sometimes I've seen them and then somebody will talk about it, and at first I have that thought, you know, I don't think I've seen that. But then they get to talking about it more, and I remember that scene from the movie, like, yeah, I did see that movie. So I always keep that in mind. Even when we're in this class, keep in mind that what we're telling you, whether you think you're gonna remember it or not, whether you're taking notes or not, it's gonna be in that memory. And you never know when it'll resurface or when you'll need that thought. So never think that you're wasting your time by reading a certain book. Even if it's a bad book, you can get something out of it, and you'll have something on cap that, again, you never know when it'll pop up or when you'll need it, but it'll be there. And one more thing before I go. Now I want you all to close your eyes one more time. Everybody close their eyes. Now remember that cup that you had on the floor that had water in it, that had a sponge in it. Pick that cup up. Take that sponge out. Look at that sponge. You can't see water, but squeeze that sponge. I guarantee you can see the water coming out. Now open your eyes. That's what I want you to leave with. Your mind, sponge, and guess what? You might not know the thoughts is in there, but if you squeeze hard enough, those thoughts will come out. Thank you. So fellas, feedback. Let's go. How was it?
I'm muted, man.
Okay.